isn't done yet.
That was Ross Hawkins reporting. So what is going to happen now? The first question, not whether or not Theresa May will face a leadership challenge. Let's talk to Katie Perrier, who's the former head of communications at 10 Downing Street, is in our radio car, and Jonathan Isaby, who's editor of BrexitCentral, the website, and is here in the studio. Morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Katie Perrier, first of all, is it now inevitable that there is a leadership challenge?
I think so, and I think that she would have probably expected that. So she would have game planned it and worked out that this moment probably was always going to come for her at some point. So I think she will be facing a vote of no confidence in the next few days.
Do you agree, Jonathan?
I do. I spent most of yesterday around Parliament, as Ross Hawkins did, talking to Conservative MPs of all shades, and I certainly got the sense that her position was coming under increasing threat, and basically, her intransigence on this particular deal that she's put forward had driven enough people, I think, to put those letters in that we will probably see it next week.
And Katie Perry, as a former head of comms, when you saw her yesterday at 5:15 in the evening, the prime ministerial seal and all the rest of it, all the kind of pomp and circumstance behind her, and people expecting actually all sorts of other dramatic things, but instead they got what they got. That then part of a kind of preemptive strike on those who might act against her.
Yeah, she's digging in. She's trying to follow the grid because they knew this moment was going to come, and so she's trying to say, I'm going to replace those pictures of me under real pressure in the last 2.5 hours in the Commons. I'm going to replace those with me, standing in number 10 with authority to tell you, and she's using very personal language. This is not the normal Theresa May in terms of the fact that she's really, the language she's using, head and heart, every fibre of my being, she's throwing everything at it.
And for those, Jonathan, who said, why doesn't she do a John Major and actually just say, OK, come on, I'm resigning, stand against me. Under the existing rules of the party, the new rules of the party since John Major, that's not an option that's open to her.
Exactly, that's not an option. John Major, before, in 1995, was able to resign and re-stand. In the current rules, as I understand them, if you resign, you cannot be a candidate in any election, which is why there would need to be a vote of no confidence in order to remove a leader. And it's also why no individual Conservative MP can challenge the leadership, because you have to remove the leader before an election can take place.
And the other point, Katie Perry, that having talked about it or muttered behind the scenes about it, and we heard a bit more muttering in Ross Hawkins's piece there, that they really are going to have to put up and shut up or shut up and do it pretty soon.
Yeah, she's not going anywhere fast unless they get rid of her. She's made that perfectly clear. She decides that this kind of job, what she does for a living, is public service. She's the ultimate vicar's daughter. She gets up early in the morning. The rest of us are just thinking, oh my God, how does she get through the day? And when you're outside of the Westminster bubble and you're not, furiously texting everybody who's a complete geek like I am, when you go home and talk to people, they say the same thing. My God, look at her resilience. Look at her sheer determination to try and do the best. Possibly it was the most impossible task, and she's the one that's facing it, and she will not hand that over lightly to any of her colleagues if she thinks that they won't do the job in the way that she will do it.
On the other hand, if she loses Michael Gove, as many expect that she will, possibly within the next few hours, does that change things, do you believe, Katie?
I don't think it massively changes things, because I think that she's probably set on a certain course now. And also, we've said this before, lots and lots of those Westminster bubble text messages and WhatsApp messages yesterday were saying she's toast, she's absolutely toast. And then they follow up very quickly with, but I said that before and I was proved wrong. I wouldn't predict that at the moment. I think that she's probably set on a course, and the next stage is probably at some point that no confidence vote. But of course, when they use that to strike, that's the most important thing. If they go too early, she may win it, and then they can't do it for another year.
Yeah, and also, Jonathan Isaby, they are very conscious, and the party very conscious, that if she doesn't win it, there is no obvious prospect of someone winning it who can unite the party any more than she can.
That is clearly a challenge, but
it's true, isn't it?
The arch-Brexiteers have not wanted to remove her throughout this process.
No, and you can see why. They've not got anyone to put in her place.
But if you look at what Jacob Rees-Mogg and others have been saying throughout the last 18 months, they've wanted her to stick to the policy, to stick to her own policy that she set out at Lancaster House at the very beginning of this process. And the sad thing is that she has veered away from those commitments, and yet still, even in the chamber of the House of Commons, as I was watching down from the gallery yesterday morning, she was still claiming to be fulfilling all those commitments she made and not breaching any of those red lines, while saying we've had to make some difficult choices. I fear that we are seeing that kind of nothing has changed moment again, where she's implying that nothing has changed when actually she has actually had to breach some of those red lines, and that's what so many of the Brexiteers find so difficult to deal with.
We will be turning to those red lines and the extent to which they have been breached later on in the programme, hearing from David Davis and indeed from a Cabinet Minister as well later on, from James Brokenshire. But for the time being, Jonathan Isaby and Katie Perry, thanks both.
18 minutes past 7. How are business leaders reacting to the political fallout from the publication of the draft Brexit deal? What's happened in the last 24 hours? Katie Prescott has been looking at that.
Well, initially, businesses were pretty pleased that there was a plan, any plan, providing something.